Welcome to another live edition of the Intel Strike Report, and we have a definite treat for you today. It is March 26, 2009 in the Barack Hussein Obama administration, and with us now is a very special guest and good friend of ours, and that is Alan Watt from CuttingThroughTheMatrix.com. Alan, how's it going, my man?
It's fast and furious now as we watch the world turn here.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, it just seems to me that all the things that you and other people like yourself have been talking about, for years now, is just out there and open in your face, and they're not even trying to lie about it anymore.
They're not, and the signs were there for many years. What was coming along had to happen. 9/11 came on cue, the beginning for the 21st century of change. And of course, the public don't realize that the change was planned a long time ago, even before the League of Nations was set up, a controlled society worldwide to do with free trade and a depopulation agenda on the go at the same time. We're watching everything getting rammed through, including abortion ads going to come out on television in Britain to force them to bring down their population.
Oh, matter of fact, I saw an article about how now they're pushing the Plan B pills on everyone, and harkens back to, I keep talking about the World Bank saying that eugenics was a great thing until the Nazis just sort of ran the ground and made them look bad.
That's right. Now, of course, they've changed all their names, even their designation from eugenicists to bioethics counselors and so on. It's the same group, funded by the same foundations that are owned and run by the big bankers. And what we're so sick of seeing, and I hope all the demonstrators that are for the upcoming riots, I call them riots because they will be, I hope they realize that you can't negotiate with the same shark who always gives you a new deal, one after the other. And we've had new deals always coming from the same bunch. And they want you to demonstrate and have riots so they can come out with the next new deal, which will go right along with the agenda of sustainability, the greening of the planet, etc., and we'll be complete slaves then working in their new system with the same sharks on top.
Yeah, that's what they want. They want you to riot. They're trotting out people like Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Chuck Norris, all these guys to play sort of like a Pied Piper. We've been talking about this, just sort of drag you, back onto the grid, and for you to expose yourselves. And as soon as you go out and riot, it's, the economic situation is not under control, and the UN now is calling for a new global Green New Deal, and then they'll roll it all out for you.
That's right. They always get the public to become war-weary through either real wars or internal wars, which are called rioting, and then we, the public, demand the same sharks give us what we want, we think we want. Well, now you have all the students who've been brainwashed for 15 years or so of intense indoctrination, and in psychology it's called a contamination of theory. That's what the communists called it. And you cannot readjust that generation. They've got the new system that they want, this vague idea mixed up with sustainability and greening because of their indoctrination. So they'll demand exactly what the elite want to bring in.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to talk about sustainability here on the other side. You listen to the Intel Strike Report with our special guest, Alan Watt from CuttingThroughTheMatrix.com. We'll talk about sustainability, Tavistock Institute, and your calls as well, 1-866-841-1065. See you on the other side. You're listening to the Intel Strike Report. Until I heard her guitar. Welcome back to the Intel Strike Report on the Oracle Broadcasting Network with our special guest, and we like to bring him on every couple of months or so because everything is moving, I guess, backwards very quickly, and I guess they're trying to roll out this new, I guess you could say, technocratic dark age for us, and we have to bring on Alan, and he'll cut through the matrix for us and expose it all. And before the break, we were talking about sustainability and, sustainable development, these buzzwords like capacity building, bridging the development gap, and really what they stand for, Alex and Alan. I mean, and the thing about it is that I've seen these people use these words interchangeably when it comes to population. as if sustainability and sustainable growth creates some sort of situation where they can crack down on how much we use and what energy sources we use, and down to the point of how we live. And they use a ratio called the family dependency ratio, which sort of cuts the wheat from the chaff and says, are you a consumer or are you a producer? And which is sort of interesting. And if you're only a consumer, not a producer, then you can't live on the earth.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I have old books I've found from countries, from the governments of Canada and other Commonwealth countries from the before 1920, in fact, one of them. And it's a huge thing. It's thicker than most old Bibles, to do with all the stuff that was bought and sold within countries, right down for all taxation purposes, hammers, nails, everything, you name it, bushels of wheat and all the rest of it. The incredible bookkeeping that was kept. And what you understand, every country is a corporation, and we exist, according to the elite, we exist to serve their economy. When there's no more economy as you go into a global system, and China as a manufacturer, we are no longer really necessary. That's the key to it. We're the stock, we're the animals in the farm. And when there's too many animals and they can't get buyers for them, there's no purpose for them, they've got to do a cull. And so they must convince the herd, the human being. We're the only ones that need convincing to go along with their own culling. And that's what they're up to right now. They're indoctrinating the youth to accept there's too many people. Why don't you get sterilized? Don't bother having children. And what kind of life will they have anyway? And by the way, you won't have the resources you're going to have that you have now in the future. So it's going to be hell for them. And so they must convince us to go along with their agenda always. It's done through incredible scientific indoctrination and psychology. And unfortunately, it tends to work with most people.
It does. And you mentioned the youth. And I don't know how many different globalist organizations that get their money from, the Rockefeller Foundation and others, like Global Kids. I've chronicled this one, heavily. There's the Global Kids group. There's Zenith, that's sort of like Global Kids with a little greeny-weeny taste to it. And then there's the whole Obama deal about getting them while they're young and, bringing up the next generation of the green shirt stormtroopers.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to use taxpayers' money, again, as always, why not? We're so willing to help them out, to indoctrinate with ideology. It's an ideology of indoctrination in the schools to do with this whole Obama army. And that's game over when that happens, because those children will be unable to converse with the older generations in any fashion whatsoever. And that's intentional. They are going to be the green Nazis, yeah.
Well, another thing about the kids now is that all of these people now are sort of reminding me of every now and then when I read Brave New World over and over again, on where they talk about the viviparous mother. Oh, we can't have the viviparous mothers, and every child must be born, through some sort of petri dish or test tube. And now they're talking about, making the whole idea of these designer babies mainstream, and that, the state will own these children, from cradle to grave.
Yes, they will, and that's already on the books because they've got the patent laws to do with genes, and all they have to do is alter a gene, call it a new name, and legally you belong to them. And that is what they're aiming at. There's no doubt about it. They want a new, superior type of servant to serve the next generations of the elite, but they don't need as many of us to do it. But again, they must get our cooperation to go along. They'll sell people on the idea that your child will be 6 feet tall, he's got the ability to be a doctor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they hope that women will eventually fall for it. And the movie Gattaca went through that
oh, yes.
society, where they'll show you a new type of class distinction, those who are genetically enhanced and the old type that were born the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, those who can get jobs and those who can't get jobs, and you can't get insured, you have bad genes, and your family is prone to this or prone to that. And that's just really the beginning. And then I saw an article about 2 days ago saying that any children born through in vitro fertilization has a 30% risk of defects. So
yes.
They're raising up, just how some of the elite, the sort of Eurasian aristocracy now, are all like intermarrying, interrelated, and have defects. They're going to raise up a new generation of these people, without going through the I guess, the sort of ordinary means of that.
they want to bypass it altogether, and we don't realize that the eugenic society was on the go from the time of Charles Darwin onwards, worldwide. And there's different names and so on, but in America they had the American Eugenics Society, funded by Carnegie and Rockefeller Foundation, and they said in their early writings that they likened the general population to cattle rearing, and they based it on breeding special cattle was the same as breeding human beings. They introduced the census in the United States and kept track of it on behalf of the government to see if you had poverty genes. They wanted your family history to see how many people could work, didn't work, were mentally ill, had possibly criminal intentions, etc. And they've been tracking you right down for the last 100 years along your genetic lines by the census and by the data that's collected by governments on behalf of the Eugenics Society. And they set up Cold Springs Harbor as that kind of experiment in eugenics. And they said at the time that they'd have to get the compliance of the public through long-term indoctrination so that the public would allow themselves to be altered and controlled by those who had the rights to control them.
Yeah, and then that's the new thing. I mean, this goes back to the Fabian socialists like Bernard Shaw writing, the play Man to Superman, Man and Superman, and others in the whole thing, and H.G. Wells. I mean, this was their creation even back then, and today, they're bearing the fruit of that.
Yes, that's a fact. Once again, all these societies really came out of one society, the capstone at the top, and that was, at least it was given the name of the Rhodes Foundation, Cecil Rhodes, which became amalgamated with the Milner Group Society on behalf of royalty, and became the Royal Institute for International Affairs, or the CFR in other countries. So they run all these other groups and names beneath them, these associations beneath them, and they're all funded by the big moneylenders of the world, the big 13 banking families.
Absolutely, and we're going to continue this conversation on the other side, and we're going to be talking about augmented reality, more breads and circuses for you, those who survived the technocratic dark age. You listen to the Intel Strike Report with our special guest, Alan Watt, cuttingthroughthematrix.com. You have to go there, a plethora of information, and we're back on the other side.
That I lost much, lost touch of reality, it cost much.
Tonight we are cutting through the matrix with Alan Watt and talking about all of this is going on right now, and really sort of the culmination of everything that is being created and the whole system that's being erected around us. And the whole thing about it is that, of course, if you live through living in a Rose Motel, being sprayed like bugs with all sorts of things, with pharmaceutical products in the water, if you live through that and they can't get rid of you, then, of course, they're going to provide you some breads and circuses. Well, our economic situation is untenable at least, so there's going to be a little less bread, but there's going to be a whole lot of circuses. So that's really what I want to jump into now. And Alan, I've seen lately there's been a lot of talk of virtual reality programs, augmented reality programs, three-dimensional television algorithms that go from 2D to 3D, and they're really trying to get Americans and people abroad, around the world, ingrained on this technology where they get to the point where they can't live without it, and that's all they want. It's like people getting stuck in World of Warcraft or EverQuest.
Yes, again, it's a form of control. Much of the technology that's out there now to do with virtual reality and what's coming, believe you me, they're so far ahead of whatever they publish, but they do publish certain things which tells us really they're much further ahead than what they're telling us, such as you find Microsoft telling the public that they're working on a device that can literally send signals into different parts of the brain and also sense the parts of the brain that's working when you're watching their particular video. And therefore, they can then stimulate those same parts of the brain and make you think you're in the virtual reality. And the same blog I was reading from the same corporation, they tell you that they might not need the helmet. They've got one group working on the helmet that you put on, a very cumbersome thing, but they've also got a screen. They can actually build it around the screen, like an antenna, and then you sit 5 or 6 feet away, and this will still massage your brain, pick up which parts of the brain is working, and sending signals back to it. So they're working on both at the same time, which tells me they've done it long ago. So that's a matter of conditioning the public to allow themselves to go into a la-la world, a non-reality. And here's the thing, too. It's well known with drugs, for instance, drugs that are killing millions over the years. The worse conditions that you live in when you're in poverty, despair, and apathy, the more drugs you'll take to escape reality. We're going into a future where they're going to make things so bad, they're going to create a scarcity of water when one corporation owns the water supply of the world. They're going to create a food crisis. And believe you me, you'll have all your little cheap electronic gadgets that will put you in a never land. And you'll be quite happy in that neverland as your body wastes away. That's what's coming.
Oh, you mentioned something very, very interesting. I mean, right now you've got Microsoft and Google working on technology to wirelessly, access, the neurons inside your brain, download all of your memories, and, of course, you can go through, the first time you had your first kiss, or you can check out your, most embarrassing moments. And, all of this is a circus. All of this is a circus. I mean, you got UFC for the gladiators style, you know what I mean? You got technology for the other people, the geeks, to sort of get into, and they've got something for everybody as they create these sort of boxes that they place people in and say, oh, you are this type of person, we've got something for you. And and that's just the way it is, and they're being creating that to the point where, they say that the internet will soon be an organism that we will all become a part of, and there'll be one of the guys said there'll be an Alexandria Library 2.0 where all the information from all of our brains combined will be the internet. And
well, see, the thing is, a few billion zeros add up to zero. We must remember that too. So most people are not really even conscious in their own lifetime. They don't know what's going on in the real reality. They have no idea. So you can imagine having the thoughts of all the unconscious people who live in soap operas and sports inside your head. I mean, what a thrill.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just...
What we have to remember is, you see, Skinner, who did behavioral modification techniques and so on, including on his own daughter, he put her in a cage. This is a good psychopath that they tend to use his techniques on us. Skinner said to alter human behavior, you must alter something in their environment. Well, they did that with TV. They did it with radio before TV, and virtual reality is now coming in. Now, TV and radio were used from the beginning for controlling and altering behavior of the general public, authorized from those who control society and own society. Therefore, they're part of the military-industrial complex. We don't realize that. It's like General Electric. They don't just make irons and so on. They also make incredible Gatling guns for helicopters. They can do 1,000 rounds per minute and so on. That's what's part of. Now, Microsoft, because it was put up from nowhere, it broke all the rules, it stole patents from all the other corporations, and no judge in the country or the world would touch them. That tells you it was top CIA clearance all the way for Mr. Gates. He was the front man. It's part of the military-industrial complex because technology, as I said, at the end of World War II, will control the future and control the peoples of the future. It's therefore a perpetual war upon the public. Anything which comes in to your mind that you haven't authorized and you're not in charge of is controlling you. And therefore it's planned, debated, and put out to you by those who believe they own society.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing about this is there's so many different technological applications that they're using now that's being created by Microsoft, IBM, and the rest. IBM, of course, who is, infamous for the Hollerith machine, is now creating a new type of that machine like that where they decide whether a worker is really producing to the optimum output. Mm-hmm. And so you work in your job and you end up being a slave to some machine and telling you're not working hard enough. So, that at every angle they seem to be trying to put a strangle on how we live and how we work.
Well, they do because, again, they see us at the top. And I'm not kidding. They really discuss us as you discuss, farmers would discuss their animals. And the whole thing about farming or any corporation is about producing efficiently. Everything must be very efficient. Anything that's not efficient is simply cut off. And that's what they want to do with humanity, make more efficient worker bees for them. But they've also said in their own writings that when they get into modification of the human mind, what they will do is eradicate that part of the mind, or the brain, that makes you an individual you. And that came out at first to the general public, although they censored it rather quickly, in a 600-page report from, I think it was a university in, it was the deep south there. Anyway, they did a report. It was a World Science meeting anyway with geneticists and the technicians there as well, of all kinds and categories. Newt Gingrich headed it off. And they said that they have the ability now they have the ability, and they've had it for a few years, to put a brain chip in the public and control the populations. The only problem they had, that was at the Loyola University meeting, that's where it was. And they said, the only problem is to convince the public to accept it. This will be done by gradualism, by using novels, writing it into novels and sci-fi books, making it exciting to children so they'll want it. It will appear in movies, and it will eventually be taught in schools as a necessity. So we're on the road. We've had meetings every year now since 2001 on this very agenda, and now we're convincing the public it's a good thing.
Absolutely, and I want to continue that thought because there's some very stunning revelations on that. And Doug Owen's going to be with us on the other side. You've got Alan Watt, and we're cutting through the matrix here on Oracle Broadcasting Network. You listen to the Intel Strike Report. I will see you on the other side, my friends. Oh, get ready for the Soma. And they always have a box for you that fits very, very nicely. And of course, we are cutting through the matrix with Alan Watt, and you can go to his site, cuttingthroughthematrix.com. Doug Owen is with us in studio, and we're discussing all, but on the subject of all of these little breads and circuses, it goes back to the days of, Jose Delgado, of course, who went to Congress and said that he could fit every American with a brain chip, and that, he could turn us off, turn them back off, and turn us on, turn it off, and it wouldn't be a big deal. And of course, they looked at him like he was insane. I wonder if someone came to Congress today with the same idea. I wonder how they would feel about that. Because, right now, Alan, using nanotechnology, RF systems where you can wirelessly give people medication that's already been patented, all of this is so easy to do. And if any emergency happened around the country right now, it would be very, very easy to calm down Americans or dumb them down or dumb down Canadians or wherever you may live, because the technology is out there. It's open patent that you can go and read this information.
It's more than just out there waiting or ready. It's being used. They've been using the HARP frequencies for years on the public. Ham radio guys can pick it up. I can pick it up on my shortwave radio every day now. For the last, since 2001, it started every day for 24 hours. Hasn't gone off. And it changes frequency 2 or 3 times a day. And that's right in the warfare treaty, the weather warfare treaty of the United Nations, signed in the 70s, that they can put a secondary signal on the HARP signal, which can alter human behavior, make you passive, aggressive, or even suicidal and depressed. So they're using this stuff right now, and that's admitted to as well. If you go back into the books by Brzezinski, for instance, Between Two Ages. Now, he was the head of the NSA for years. He's never really left it. In fact, if you read some of the later documentation, in fact, recent documentation, and he's a man writing a book about the technotronic era, one of his chapters, where he talks about a technology, he talks about electronics for warfare purposes to be used on the general public on a continent-wide or worldwide basis and keep them calm and pacified during times of emergency and so on. And he said the public were completely ignorant of it being used upon them. Well, they see they're actually doing it already, coupled with the heavy spraying in the skies. This is phenomenal. 10 years now, solid, of spraying worldwide. And no one's come forward to say which Air Force is this, where's the money coming from. It's never gone through any Congress. And we do know that it's admitted to tacitly by the Canadian government because a politician from Sudbury, Ontario, demanded from the Department of Defence in Parliament building openly to discuss this, and he said we don't have to discuss this under the national security laws, but it is being done, you see.
Yeah, I mean, basically, when you have a situation where, we are electromagnetic beings. I mean,
Yes.
they can tune into our frequencies like turning a dial. I mean, that technology's been around for 30 years. They can make us happy, sad, or indifferent. I mean, when you go to some area, some rural area, where the electromagnetic junk is not all around you, it is almost like a weight drops off your shoulders because...
Well, there's a professor, Persinger, who's a neuroscientist, and he's at Laurentian University in Canada, Ontario, or Canada, I should say. He himself is high up there, and all these characters who are dealing with the brain itself and modification of the brain using drugs and electronics are in the employ. They're definitely in the employ of your country's secret services. There's no doubt. And he's been at this for years. But he used, and he's got a video up on Google where he uses the Corbin or helmet, which stimulates parts of your brain and gives you the same experiences as LSD would do. And they've known this for about 30 years. At least that helmet's been available to the students for 30 years, I'd say. So they were practicing with things, this kind of technology long before that. Now, it's the same technology. It's a very low-frequency ELF wave. You don't need high frequency or very powerful. You just need it constant and very low. That's how the brain operates in small electronic impulses. And HARP is ideal for that by giving out the ELF-type signals on a continent-wide scale. So from the localized helmet to the towers across the planet, or else using the main HARP centers. Now, there's over 50 of them worldwide, 54, I think, worldwide. There's one in Iceland, one in Greenland, and other countries as well, one in Australia, Pine Gap, owned by the U.S. military. And these things are going 24 hours a day, and their purpose really is to, apart from weather control, I'm sure as many spring-offs and mind control or pacification is another one of its uses.
So do you think that Aldous Huxley's ultimate revolution, the pharmacology revolution, is already here?
Yeah, it's already here. They're using, in fact, see, the general public really don't realize this. And this is the key, even those who think they're waking up. A long time ago, a group of people, very wealthy people, who owned the establishment of their day, decided to make war on the populace of the entire planet. And they have been at all-out war for a long, long time. Since the 1950s, it stepped up with direct inoculations for youngsters or even 2-year-old children. Now it's even younger. They discussed techniques of getting chemicals to attack the brain, biowarfare. There are books printed on this subject by Koestler, after Koestler, who's now admitted declassified information, and I've got the books that are now printed on it. He worked for MI5 and MI6 as an author, but he also worked at universities with the United Nations on ways to lobotomize the human brain for world peace. And he said in his own book, The Ghost and Machine, this must be done to bring in world peace, but he said basically this will destroy the individual's ability for self-preservation. But the masses won't need it, since the state will be controlling their lives or making all the decisions for them. This was a war, full-scale war with drugs that you can take orally, inject into you, or go and get inoculations. We're all trained to believe those inoculations are there to help us. The rates of leukemia, cancers, arthritis, and autoimmune diseases skyrocketed from 1950 to the present time. Autism used to be 1 in about 160,000, now it's about 1 in 5. And we're supposed to think this is all quite natural. What's changed in 50 years? And the mandatory inoculation was one of them. Remember, these facilities who make the inoculations are the big pharma companies. The same big pharma companies that went under the umbrella of IG Farben that set up the Nazi war machine. Like Baxter Laboratories has been in the papers recently for sending out live flu vaccine. They even flew one by mistake, supposedly. These are the same pharmaceutical companies who are in bed with the politicians to have us all inoculated for all kinds of things. It's all based on faith. The doctor who gives you the injection reads the vial, same with the nurse, and they believe that's what's in that thing. But look at the diseases we have today. We have juvenile arthritis skyrocketing. That's an autoimmune disease where your immune system attacks your own body, your joints. You've got people getting asthma in their 40s and 50s. That was unheard of before. Allergies in the last 2 years have gone up 47% alone. And I'm sure it's because of the spraying too. So you're being inoculated to death. And you're breathing in all of the spray that's falling down from the skies daily, this mush in the air. They've altered your food. They brought in bioweapons specialists and geneticists to make your food for you. That makes me feel really good about the food I'm eating. Why would they do that? Why would they take 500 to 1,000 genes from different species of things to put in your carrots? You cannot trust these people at all because they have an agenda. They can't tell the children of the world they're killing them off. You don't tell the children bad news. You humor them. You give them excuses when the children notice things like, why are my friends dying? And that's how they treat the general populace of the world. We are under full-scale war, and their agenda is out in the open.
Very much so. It's sad and depraved the way these people are reacting. But you're right. You know, they think they're sitting on high and that they're better than the rest of us and that they've evolved and we haven't, and that, you know, they have to make the earth a paradise for themselves instead of us. And for those of us who are left, who will be left to our own devices and dumbed down, mind controlled, and given the circuses to keep us occupied.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's total war. Total war was declared on us, and until we get over the hurdle of the unthinkable and accept the unthinkable has been done to us, we have lost the battle.
Damn straight. You're listening to the Intel Strike Report with Alan Watt, cutting through the matrix. We'll be talking about much, much more on the other side. Stay with us.
Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to the Intel Strike Report right here on the one and only Oracle Broadcasting. Today we are joined with Mr. Alan Watt, and it's always great to have Alan on, especially considering the times. We are really, really seeing the New World Order, these controllers having to respond quite quickly to the internet. That's why we had Senator Jay Rockefeller coming out and saying the internet was one of the worst things that could have happened. It was supposed to be under DARPA control, and unfortunately the technology was released, and people like Michael Vail, myself, and of course Mr. Alan Watt have been able to use this technology against them. And so they are definitely ramping up their game. They have blown the economy out, and they are doing their best to be able to manage the slow deflation and inflation of the economy. Alan, I want to get your take on this because I think that we have seen a lot of positive things over the last few years, especially with the internet. I think that right now people are more awake than they have ever been, and we have one of the largest opportunities to wake up millions upon millions of people that are potentially very, very susceptible to not only the propaganda of the Obama administration, but also to the idea of freedom and liberty. And I've seen this ramp up. I'm sure you have as well. I just want to get your take on what's going on right now and your viewpoint on the New World Order and where they're trying to go here in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, the internet was put out there to do exactly what it's doing today. This is the thing. Remember, the military-industrial complex used the internet for many years all through the Cold War. And Brzezinski, again, in that same book in the 70s, said, Between Two Ages, he says that shortly a technique of communication will be given to the public. And he outlines its purposes, and etc. But you see, its real purpose was to get us hooked on it, to comply and voluntarily give out all our data on a continuous basis to those who control us. In a totalitarian society, everyone must be predictable. Every citizen must be completely 100% predictable, and therefore they have all these studies out on what we do and what we write and so on, who we communicate with, what do we have in common with those people around us on the net, etc. And the hope that they had was eventually, once we're all hooked on it and thinking we can't do without it, then they'd start to gradually, always gradually, start to reel in those sites that are a nuisance to them. And we see that starting off in Australia, where they've kicked off there with their banned list. And
Sure.
if you're in the banned list, you can get fined $11,000 per day if you go into those particular sites. And they won't put out the list as banned so far. But you know one thing, once they have a list there, regardless of if they bring it in for pedophiles or whatever excuse they give, you know they're going to expand it. That's the real reason's never given to the public. And suddenly you're on a banned list. And then once they shut you down, no one can come into your site. And they hope that they can bring us through this phase. They'll bring in the mainstream. They've already done it with the mainstream. They've had big world meetings about bringing the mainstream media to take over the internet. And then they'll give us lots of sex and usual stuff. And so we'll just continue giving it our personal information with emails and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, watch the trivia they throw at us. That's what they really hope to do with the internet.
Do you think that they're being successful, or that we're able to, we're actually having an effect that they did not foresee?
I don't think there's anything they don't foresee. They have massive studies on the go all the time, and many different levels of data collection. Just look at the RAND Corporation, for instance. The RAND Corporation's job is literally kicking off wars of conquest or for resources, and then finding ways to implement it into the public psychology so that we think it's a good and justifiable war, etc. They're the ones who advise governments on the terrorism, etc., all these laws. It's all RAND. They went right through the Cold War advising the Western world on how to react, what to look out for, etc. So they don't miss something like giving freedom to the people for a little while. And they also know the techniques to start roping in that freedom while keeping you addicted to it. It's up to the public, really, to create one hell of a stink. Now, most of the public really don't care. They're in la-la lands. You know, the amazing thing about the internet was, when it first was given to the public, the only thing the media let you know about it was there was lots of porn on it. You just could not pick up a paper for about 2 years without statements like massive porn on blah, blah, blah. And that was advertising to get everyone into it. And I've been surprised at how many people are completely addicted to the porn on the internet. They make sure that you keep using it, you see. And now you've got a generation growing up for half their lives, that's about 20, they're used to watching porn. And they will miss it if it goes away. So people will stick on the internet. They'll stick into the gossip columns. And it's becoming more and more like regular, I call it trash media from Britain. If you look at Yahoo sites, it's just like the trash stuff. They have the sex on one side and reality on the other. So it's horror mixed with fantasy and sex and trivia and Hollywood bimbos until nothing is real anymore. That's the technique that they're hoping to use. Keep people stuck to it, keep people addicted to it. As long as they can keep communicating with emails and so on, they'll be quite happy, you know.
Sure. But I do think that we are waking a lot of people up, and that's a really good thing. You know,
yes,
I've seen.
In the meantime, absolutely. And again, too, people should definitely, if they're in contact with people sharing information, and you know these people over a long period of time, because it's very difficult to know who you're talking to on the internet. If you do know people you really, really trust, you should have ulterior ways of communication in the future in case they ever start pulling it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like ham radios and different things like that. I mean,
ham radios, and even the old way was letter writing. They hate letters. That's why they love emails. They love emails. They collect all the data. In the old days, the British Post Office and the Canadian Post Offices and all the Commonwealth countries and the U.S. with the CIA had special post offices set up. And if you were on the list, all your mail was diverted there. They'd open it, read it, copy it, put it back in a brand new envelope, and had all the stamps of the world. They'd stamp it on it and send it on its way. That took a lot of manpower, and it really ticked them off. But with the email, we're helping them so much. It's just astonishing. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they don't have to steam open any envelopes or pay for postage. They can just go ahead and use a supercomputer to collect that data and use keyword analysis to find out what's interesting and what's not. Well, Alan, I want to thank you for the time. We only have a few minutes here. Go ahead and plug your websites, your books, any of the things that you're going to be doing here in the future. You have the floor.
Yes, they can go to cuttingthroughmatrix.com website, and they can download. There's over, I think, maybe close to 700 hours of talks I've given in the past about this big system that controls us, completely controls us, and has the previous generations too. I try to go into the sciences of how it's done from their own books, in fact, using their own material to show the public it's not a conspiracy. They have published what they wanted to do, how they do it, and where they want to go with it. And they can also look into Alan Watt Sentinel.eu for transcripts of the same talks, and they can print them up in the different languages of Europe, or they can tune into my own show on RBN every 5 nights a week, where I try to keep up with the main news and pick the relevant topics and show them how it ties in with the whole agenda.
And you do a very good job at it, and that's why we love having you on the program, Alan, because, right now we just see this ramp up. Real quickly here, what do you see happening in the next year or two with the financial system and, of course, war?
Well, remember, the Council on Foreign Relations have a sort of a constitution, you might say. And one of their purposes to be set up was to get the world, as the people of the world, to go into a new system of service to the world state. That's in their own writings. And remember, money is a tool to them. They have all the money in the world, since they can print it up and just basically add it into computers and dots and dashes, and there it is. Money is a key that we must believe in so that we can be controlled, you see. Eventually they'll do away with money, and they want to introduce a kind of credit system dished out by government, almost like rations to you, into an account that you'll have, an electronic account. And Russell and other ones went through this process of what they'll bring in. They'll use it for social punishment, withdraw your credits if you don't comply or you're socially antagonistic to their system.
And they're doing that through welfare right now in the United States, getting people really used to this system.
Absolutely. And they always use those who have no voice, and they start with fingerprints in the welfare, then it spreads into your ID cards worldwide. They're bringing in a new system of welfare testing now for drugs, mandatory drug testing. It will go into the unemployed as well, and that will spread all through society. So everything starts with those at the bottom who have no voice, or the elderly, or the very young.
Alan, I want to thank you for your time, man, and we'll have you on as soon as your schedule lets, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate being on with you. I look forward to it. Depopulation agenda on the go at the same time. We're watching everything getting rammed through, including abortion ads going to come out on television in Britain to force them to bring down their population. You know.
Oh, matter of fact, I saw an article about how now they're pushing the Plan B pills on everyone, and sort of harkens back to, I keep talking about the World Bank saying that eugenics was a great thing until the Nazis just sort of ran the ground and made them look bad.
That's right. That's right. Now, of course, they've changed all their names, even their designation from eugenicists to bioethics counselors and so on. It's the same group, funded by the same foundations that are owned and run by the big bankers. And what we're so sick of seeing, and I hope all the demonstrators that are for the upcoming riots, I call them riots because they will be, I hope they realize that you can't negotiate with the same shark who always gives you a new deal, one after the other. And we've had new deals, always coming from the same bunch. And they want you to demonstrate and have riots so they can come out with the next new deal, which will go right along with the agenda of sustainability, the greening of the planet, etc., and we'll be complete slaves then.
Welcome to another live edition of the Intel Strike Report, and we will have a definite treat for you today. It is March 26, 2009 in the Barack Hussein Obama administration. And with us now is a very, very special guest and good friend of ours, and that is Alan Watt from CuttingThroughTheMatrix.com. Alan, how's it going, my man?
It's It's fast and furious now as we watch the world turn here.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, it just seems to me that all the things that you and other people like yourself have been talking about, for years now, is just out there and open in your face, and they're not even trying to lie about it anymore.
They're not, and the signs were there for many years. What was coming along had to happen. 9/11 came on cue, the beginning for the 21st century of change. And of course, the public don't realize that the change was planned a long, long time ago, even before the League of Nations was set up, a controlled society worldwide to do with free trade and
talk about sustainability here on the other side. You listen to the Intel Strike Report with our special guest Alan Watt from CuttingThroughTheMatrix.com. We'll talk about sustainability, Tavistock Institute, and your calls as well. 1-866-841-1065. See you on the other side. You're listening to the Intel Strike Report. Until I heard her guitar. Welcome back to the Intel Strike Report on the Oracle Broadcasting Network with our special guest, and we like to bring him on every couple of months or so because everything is moving, I guess, backwards very, very quickly, and I guess they're trying to roll out this new, I guess you could say, technocratic dark age for us, and we have to bring on Alan, and he'll cut through the matrix for us and expose it all. And before the break, we were talking about sustainability and, sustainable development, these buzzwords like capacity building, bridging the development gap, and really what they stand for, Alex and Alan. I mean, and the thing about it is that I've seen these people use these words interchangeably when it comes to population, as if sustainability and sustainable growth creates some sort of situation where they can crack down on how much we use and what energy sources we use, and down to the point of how we live. And they use a ratio called the family dependency ratio, which sort of cuts the wheat from the chaff and says, are you a consumer or are you a producer? And which is sort of interesting. And if you're only a consumer, not a producer, then you can't live on the earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I have old books I've found from countries, from the governments of Canada and other Commonwealth countries from the before 1920, in fact, one of them. And it's a huge thing. It's thicker than most old Bibles, to do with all the stuff that was bought and sold within countries, right down for all taxation purposes, hammers, nails, everything, you name it, bushels of wheat and all the rest of it. The incredible bookkeeping that was kept. And what you understand, every country is a corporation, and we exist, according to the elite, we exist to serve their economy. When there's no more economy as you go into a global system, and China as a manufacturer, we are no longer really necessary. That's the key to it. We're the stock, we're the animals working in their new system with the same sharks on top.
Yeah, that's what they want. They want you to write. They're trotting out people like Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Chuck Norris, all these guys to play sort of like a Pied Piper. We've been talking about this, to sort of drag you, back onto the grid and for you to expose yourselves. And as soon as you go out and riot, it's, the economic situation is not under control, and the UN now is calling for a new global Green New Deal, and then they'll roll it all out for you.
That's right. They always get the public to become war-weary through either real wars or internal wars, which are called rioting, and then we, the public, demand the same sharks give us what we want, we think we want. Well, now you have all the students who've been brainwashed for 15 years or so of intense indoctrination, and in psychology it's called a contamination of theory. That's what the communists called it. And you cannot readjust that generation. They've got the new system that they want, this vague idea mixed up with sustainability and greening because of their indoctrination. So they'll demand exactly what the elite want to bring in.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to